Hello and welcome back. This is the series, part 4 of the series of the battle between flesh and spirit. It's been actually a while but I want to go back and pick this up and see it to its end. This is part 4, as I said. Just an FYI, this video, I forgot to shoot an intro, so this is going to be a little bit out of order, but it'll all make sense. But basically, I'm getting back into the series, something I think about all the time. I just haven't had a chance to make a video about it. But this topic is something I think about all the time and definitely want to get back into it and keep digging for better answers. It's been so long, just a little bit of a recap. If you had watched the first 3 when they came out, episode 1 just kind of part 1, just defining what I mean when I say spirit and flesh and what the Bible means when it says spirit and flesh. Kind of just explaining that, defining the terms, defining the situation, and using some scriptures to help us understand. And this is coming from a Christian point of view, this battle between flesh and spirit. Part 2 was coming from Romans chapter 7, and I'm trying to explain the war within that's happening, kind of using examples of smoking and overeating as how one part of you can be for something and one part of you can be against something, and you can have a war between your flesh and your spirit, and how that kind of plays out. Once again, kind of laying the foundation. Part 3, I explained how just like when you're hungry and you eat food, it feeds your body. If you're feeding on things of the world, carnal things, then it's feeding your flesh. If you're feeding on spiritual things, things of God, it's feeding your spirit. And whichever one of those two things you're feeding is going to become stronger. So the Bible says the flesh is weak, but the spirit is willing. A lot of that can depend on what you're feeding on. So if you haven't watched those, go back and check those 3 out. Pretty interesting. But today we're going to talk about what motivates us. There are days that I look back at my personal life and I think, what did I do today? How was I unproductive today? Why is this a failed day? And usually the answer was no motivation. So today we're basically going to talk about 2 things. What is motivating you and what is not motivating you? And that can help us figure out some more answers as to this battle between flesh and spirit. So I'm going to eventually get into how we have a lack of motivation and how that affects us in our daily lives on a negative way. But first, let's talk about motivation itself. So, motivation is literally just a reaction, or it's just something that comes from something else. It's nothing in itself. Motivation is just a desire or a will that we gain to do something because of something else. So it's the effect of a cause, basically. And I'm sure if I thought long enough about it, I could come up with more than just these 5. But I think any motivation is eventually going to be traced back to one of these 5 things. Love, hate, fear, reward, and pleasure. I think ultimately that's the main, or not the main, but pretty much everything is going to come from one of those 5 things. Let me give you some examples. So, you might be a young adult and you have no desire to be a parent whatsoever. You don't want it to happen. You're not looking for it to happen. You're going in the opposite direction. You're definitely not motivated to want to be a parent, but for whatever reason you end up being a parent, whether you adopt or it's natural, whatever the case. Something happens when you start to care for that child. You fall in love with it and it changes you. You'll become a different person because of the love you have for that child. And you'll notice yourself starting to be motivated to do things that in the past you would not have been motivated to do. You would have had no desire to make sure that that child is fed and nourished and comforted and helped in every way. It wasn't something you wanted, but something's happened and you're changed, and now you're motivated and you want to do those things for that child. Why? Because of love. Another example would be, I'll just use a man, but it could be either one, but let's just say you're a young man and you look at ladies and you're attracted to them. It's a lustful thing, but you have no desire to marry one. You have no desire to spend the rest of your life with one. You read a passage in the Bible like where a man is supposed to treat his wife like Christ loves the church. And it's just not something you want to do or desire. But then when you find that special lady, the right person, and you actually fall in love with them, things change. And you're motivated to do things you weren't motivated to do before. You want to spend the rest of your life with just that person. It's not just about lust, it's about love. And you just find yourself being different and motivated to do different things. So that's an example of how love can motivate. I don't think we need to go into hate, but sometimes anger, in a hatred toward a person or a thing could cause you to be motivated to do something terrible. So that's the second one. The third one is fear. I think this is the one we probably discount the most or don't realize it's there the most. It could be peer pressure. It's that fear of people not liking you. Or it could be FOMO, fear of missing out. Could be fear of being without. So many things that we do on a daily basis, we do really not because we want to do them, but because we're motivated to do them. So getting up and going to work. Does anyone really want to get up and go to work? I'm sure some do. But most people, it's not naturally in their self to say, oh man, I can't wait to get up and go and work and earn a wage today. It's just not something we generally want to do, but we get up and do it anyway. Why? Because we're motivated to do so. If you've got a family, it probably goes back to love, because there's more important things than just what you want to do. You have to provide for your family. But even if you're single, you could be doing that because you're motivated by fear. Fear of maybe not having enough money to pay your bills. Fear of not, for what people will think of you if you don't earn a living, whatever the case. Fear of losing things. Maybe you like your house. Maybe you like your new car and you don't want to lose something. There could be a million ways that it happens, but fear can cause us to do certain things. Maybe you have smoked all your life and you get a bad report from a doctor and you have fear that maybe you have cancer. Or if you don't stop smoking, maybe you will get cancer. Just an example. That fear could motivate you to stop smoking. In the past, you had no motivation to stop smoking. You didn't want to do it. Had no willpower, no desire to stop. But now fear has caused you to stop. So fear and love, in all honesty, could motivate you to do good or bad. Usually probably good, but could be either way. Of course, hate would only motivate you to do bad. Reward. So maybe you want something. Like maybe the things that motivate you to go make a living and have a career is that you want a reward from it. You want that big bonus. You want that big paycheck. You want that nicer house. You want to buy land. You want to do whatever. It could be something, it could be in a smaller scale. You just want a new gun. You want a new outfit. Whatever the case. Whatever it might be, you want something. And so you're putting in the time. You're motivated by that desire to receive the reward for it. I mean, if I told you, hey, if you go work at some job, it's a terrible, terrible job, and you're going to put in the hardest day of your life, But if you do this, at the end of the day, you're going to get $10,000. I would say every person on this planet will be willing to suffer through one day of something they don't want to do to receive that reward. If I told you, I need your help doing the exact same job, I have no reward for you, but I just need your help, some would be motivated out of love, most would not. So reward. And then the last one is pleasure. Everything that we do really is because our flesh wants us, If you're hungry, you're motivated to get up off the couch and go in and fix you something to eat because you want to fulfill that pleasure. There's plenty of things that require a little bit of effort, but they're going to satisfy a longing in your flesh. And so for pleasurable reasons, you will be motivated to do it. That doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, but it probably is most of the time. A lot of the things that give us pleasure are not really good for us, spiritually or physically. But whatever the case, we are motivated by pleasuring ourselves, having pleasure. We're motivated by reward, by fear, by hate, and by love. So that's really the 5 things, the root 5 causes, I think, that motivate us in almost every situation. Okay, so let's talk about a lack of motivation. That's really where I wanted to get to today. For instance, just give an example. Let's say that you're off work today, and there's nobody at your house, it's just you. And you don't have to do anything. You're not accountable to anybody. You don't have to leave the house. You don't even have to really get cleaned up. You can wear sweatpants. You can wear a t-shirt. You don't have to get dressed, like nicely dressed. You look around and you see some dishes that need washed, and you see trash that needs taken out, and your floor is dirty and needs vacuumed, and you see a lot of things that you should do, but you're not motivated to do it. And so, since you're not accountable to anybody, since no one's around, you'll do it later. It's not that you're opposed to those things, you just don't feel like doing it. You have no motivation. It's because you have no motivation, you have a very unproductive day. You don't do the things you should have done. And as the day goes on, you just maybe sit around on your couch and watch television all day long. And when it's all said and done, you look back and you're thinking, man, I did nothing today. Now, sometimes we just need a day of rest. I understand that. But most of the time, we should be productive. We should be motivated to get up and do something and get something done that we can look back on and think, oh man, that was awesome. I'm glad I did that today. But some days you look back and you realize, I did nothing. Why? Well, it could be a million reasons why, but it boils down to this: you weren't motivated. There was no motivation. But let's just say it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon on that day, and house is dirty, you're kind of sloppy dressed, and you don't think anybody's coming over, and it's just a lost day, And you have no motivation to get up anything. The only thing you did was you had motivation to turn on the TV. You had motivation to get up and get something to eat because you were hungry. You just had a nothing day. And then you get a call, and your mom's coming over. She's like, hey, I want you to know that I'm going to stop by. I'm swinging by. I want to talk to you. I want to see you. And your first thought is, oh no, my house is a mess. I'm a mess. What have I done today? I feel bad. Oh boy. Of course, you play it cool and you say, sure, stop by anytime. And she's like, okay, I'll be there in about 45 minutes. And you're like, okay, no problem. Get off the phone and you panic. And you spend the next 45 minutes being ultra productive. You clean your house, you make your bed, which you haven't made in months. There's no dishes laying around. You clean the toilet, everything is spotless. And you put more work into that 45 minutes than you have put in for your house in the last week. Why? Because, well, you could look at this from different ways. Probably because of fear of embarrassment, fear of someone walking in and saying, You dress like a slob and your house messy, and the fear of what they're thinking. Like, what do they think about me now? Do they think I'm like this all the time? Do they think less of me? Do they have less respect for me? So probably from a sense of fear of embarrassment, you're going to get up and clean your house. And then they come in and you're like, hey, sorry for the mess, even though that you know it's pretty clean because you just cleaned it. But that's just an example of stuff that happens. But what changed? All of a sudden, you had motivation. You went from having no motivation to having motivation. Your motivation was not to be embarrassed. Your motivation was to look good for somebody else, whether that's right or wrong, good or bad. So you went from having no motivation to having motivation. And in 45 minutes, you've done a lot. Amazing, miraculous amount of work to your house to make it look as good as it is. Now, some people might say, okay, sure, and not do anything and just let people come into the pig swaller and not care. Well, if that's the case, you might have bigger issues. But if it was me, because I've been there, by the way, I'm telling a story where I've been that person. I did care, and I felt terrible, and I did a lot of work. Now, after your company leaves, you look back and you think, I did all that in 45 minutes. Had I got up this morning bright and early and been motivated, I would have had that done in 45 minutes, maybe an hour. I wouldn't have pushed myself quite so hard. I could have got that done in an hour. Could have got cleaned up, had breakfast, cleaned my house, did everything, and then had all day long to go do fun things. And why didn't I get out and go hiking? Why didn't I get out and go fishing or do something fun or go see people? Why did I just sit around here all day long? And then you're just thinking, man. So that type of stuff makes you think, like, what causes us to have motivation? So those 5 things I mentioned usually. Why do we lack motivation? Okay, so we're in a different part of the house. The sun went down on the back porch and I lost my natural lighting, but we're gonna continue on. So we've talked about the 5 things where pretty much all motivation comes from: love, hate, fear, reward, and pleasure. Now we're going to talk about a lack of motivation, but more specifically, causes of a lack of motivation. So as I just kind of described with that story of me being at the house, my mom's coming over, sometimes having no accountability can cause us to have a lack of motivation. So having people around us can make us accountable. I don't mean that they're like, taskmasters giving us, tasks to do and we're their slaves, obviously. But what I'm just saying is just people being around us can make us feel accountable. Going back to fear, maybe we're wondering what they're thinking about us or how we live. But when you're off by yourself and you can do anything and you don't think anyone's ever going to see it or know what you do, and there's no accountability there, that can change the way that you operate. This could also be rules and protocols. If your job just told you, look, we don't care if you're an hour late, 5 hours late, 15 minutes late. There is no rule, there's no protocol on being on time. You can miss a day anytime you want to miss, it's fine. If that was happening, everybody is going to take advantage of that. Nobody's going to show up on time. Nobody's going to come in unless they just want to. So if you don't have rules and protocol and certain people around you to hold you accountable, that can cause a lack of motivation. So something to think about. So emotional issues can also cause this. So that could be depression or anxiety. Those type of feelings could bring us to a point where we just don't care. We're depressed for whatever reason, or we're just stressed out for whatever reason. It could get us to the point where we just don't care. We have an I don't care attitude. And if we do have that I don't care attitude, we're not going to be motivated to want to do the right things, do good things. We're just not going to care. So emotional weight upon us can definitely cause that. Also physical. For instance, exhaustion. If you're physically just exhausted and tired or sick or ill, you're just not going to feel like doing anything. If you work extremely hard and you get home and you're so tired you just want to go to bed, you've lost your motivation. Now, in all honesty, that's something that I don't think anyone would fault you for. They'd say, well, you've worked hard, get some sleep, get some rest. You got a lot to do tomorrow, it's A-okay. So that's not really a bad thing, but that's just an example. You can lose motivation when you're tired, when you're stressed, when you're wore out, or if we're lacking energy. If we just don't have any energy, we might have plans on doing X, Y, and Z, but the low energy just makes us say, you know what? I just don't have energy. I got no motivation. I'm not going to do those things. Now, sometimes low energy is a real physical problem. Maybe we're low on an essential vitamin or mineral, or there's something wrong with us, we're sick. Other times it's just us being lazy and making excuses, okay? But physical is definitely one of them. And then, of course, spiritual. So no accountability. Then, of course, could be something physical, something mental, and something spiritual. Maybe you just don't see what the purpose of your life is. You don't feel like you have any meaning, and you're searching for that, and you don't see meaning, you don't see purpose, you don't see value in your life or in your actions or anything that you do. That can definitely cause you to lose motivation to do anything. You just don't care because of that spiritual side. So what's the answer to this? We've explained where motivation comes from. We've explained a lot of the time what causes a lack of motivation. But what is the answer? How do we become the people that we want to be? How do we overcome our flesh? How do we let our spirit win when it comes to this topic? Well, first of all, let me tell you some things I would recommend against. The first thing is an attitude of just live with it. I could go off on a tangent and make a whole nother video about this, but I won't. But we're inherently sinful people, and sometimes our flesh wants something, and it's not right for us to have. It violates God's standards, it violates the law, maybe it's unhealthy for us, whatever the case. But just because we just have a desire for something, we just think, well, it's fine, I'm just going to live with it. We think, well, I have no motivation, I'm unproductive, I have no meaning or no value, or I'm depressed, I'm lazy, whatever the case, but that's just who I am, and I'm just going to live like that. Don't do that. Don't be content, or not content, but don't be complacent with that self. Don't think, well, I've got faults, I've got problems, that's just who I am. Let's try to overcome it together. There is truth, that's who you are, but don't stay that way. So don't just say, well, the answer is just to live with it. No, let's try to overcome it. Another thing that doesn't work is just to tell someone, well, just stop being like that. I've had people tell me that I talked to somebody about a certain subject I was struggling with, and they would say, well, just stop doing it. Just start being different. Oh, well, thanks. So hopefully you don't try to think it's that easy, because if it was, we would just do it. So don't think, well, I'll just starting tomorrow, done. I'm going to start doing better. I wish you the best of luck, but if that's your attitude, you think it's just all going to change overnight, it's probably not. I can almost guarantee you it's not. You have to get to the bottom of it and figure out what the real answer is. Another bad way to view this is just to say, well, if love brings motivation and reward brings motivation, I'll just wait for those things to happen, and then when I'm motivated, I'm motivated. When I'm not motivated, I'm not motivated. Well, maybe there's a better answer. So I'm going to try to get to that later. But let's not just be content with just saying, I'll wait for those things to happen. Maybe we can get ourselves to a place where we're motivated at all times. Maybe we can get to the root cause. And then the last bad way to try to deal with this, it's not a bad way, but I'm just telling you it's not going to work. And that's the way of the motivational speaker. I would say every motivational speaker you're ever going to watch is going to be good. They're going to have really good things for you. I've watched some, not specifically to get over something, but just happened to come upon it, and I thought it was good. And motivational speeches can be really powerful. Sometimes a preacher's sermon or a teacher's lesson can really help you coming from the Bible. Sometimes talking to somebody can encourage you. None of those things are bad. In fact, all those things are really good, and they should be part of what I talked about on the last video, that feeding. We're ingesting, we're feeding our spirit with good messages, with good attitudes, with good thoughts, with positivity. It's all good, all has its place. I'm pro all of it. But I'm telling you what's going to happen is you're going to temporarily get the willpower that you need to overcome whatever it is. You're temporarily going to get motivated to be better, be more productive, whatever it might be. Eventually, you're going to be back in the same place. So hyping yourself up, getting motivated, pumping yourself up, it will work, but it's temporary. And I'm trying to come up with root cause analysis here. I'm trying to come up with the big picture. That will only help you for a day, a week, whatever the case. But what's the real solution that's long-term? So let's just think about solutions. So sometimes people find solutions, okay? I mean, obviously, just look in the world. There are people that have started with nothing and now they're multi-millionaires or billionaires. There's people that started at the lowest part of a company and have worked their way up to become the CEO. People get motivated all the time. It's usually, once again, they're looking for reward, pleasure, or it's because of love or fear, and the bad motivations come from hate. But wherever it comes from, they just have a desire. They want to be somebody great or get recognition, whatever, and they are motivated and they live their lives that way. There's people all the time that they really want to be healthy and they want to look good and they want to feel good. And they're motivated to go to the gym every single day and they do great things. So it happens all the time. So looking at these people, why are these people doing so well? And other people maybe not doing so well. Why do I lack motivation, but somebody else doesn't? First of all, don't judge a book by its cover. So we're all different. We all have different motivations. We all think differently, feel differently, look at things differently. There might be a person who was motivated to become very, wealthy and powerful, and they become, governor of a state. They became a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. That doesn't mean that they're in a good spiritual, mental, or physical shape. There's plenty of people that have been wealthy that have committed suicide or had nothing to live for or were super depressed. So don't just automatically think that that person is doing well all around. Maybe they are. It doesn't mean just because they're rich and wealthy that they have some other issue somewhere else. It doesn't mean that. But you could have a person perhaps that's dirt poor, but they're motivated every day and they have a small job and they make enough to provide for their family and they're so happy and they're content and they're overjoyed and they have success and meaning in life and they love their family and their family loves them and they're way more happy and peaceful and full of joy than what the rich person is. It doesn't have to be that way, but I'm just saying don't judge a book by its cover. Don't just assume someone has figured out all the secrets because of what you see on the outside. It could be. They've definitely found motivation, but remember, there's good motivation and bad motivation. I haven't really talked about hate a whole lot, but sometimes people can be motivated by hate or jealousy or greed. There's negative things you can be motivated by. I'm more talking about our motivation to do good or to be better, to follow our spirit, not our flesh. Or why don't we have that motivation to be better, to follow our spirit, not our flesh? That's kind of the angle I'm going for, but obviously motivation can go either way. So what is the answer? What is the answer? How do I get the motivation that I should be having to be a better person? Well, there isn't one, just here's the answer, bam. But I can tell you some answers. First of all, if you think back about having no accountability, surrounding yourself with people, maybe an organization, but just definitely people that you know care about you, have the best interest for you, and are going to hold you accountable. Once again, I'm not talking about someone that's dominating us and telling us to do this or that. I don't mean that. I mean just them being around us motivates us to be better because we care about what they think, or maybe they're encouraging to us. There could be 1,000 reasons, but that's one reason why a lot of people go to church and they surround themselves with godly people. If you're watching this and you're not a Christian, maybe you can surround yourself with just positive, good people. Whatever the case, but if you surround yourself with the wrong type of people, the wrong crowd of people, it's going to do the opposite. But if you're having trouble motivating yourself and you're alone and you're single like me, maybe you need to be around people that are going to help you, whether it's intentionally, directly, or maybe unintentionally and indirectly, just help you by being around them. I kind of think that's why God said it's not good for a man to be alone, but to have a helpmate or a wife. So just think about that one. A couple more tips I would give you. So once again, look for the root causes. Let's say you are motivated to do bad things. Well, then you need to get to the root of it. You need to figure out, is there hate in my heart? Is there greed in my heart? Covetousness, jealousy? And you need to deal with that. Or maybe there's a lack of love. Maybe there's a lack of good things that are not there. So get to the root of that, But look for the root causes in what is motivating you and what's not motivating you. Try to get to the root causes. Having said all that, here's what I think is the best advice I can give you and give myself. Look for deeper love and deeper purpose. We know that love is a motivator. When we truly love somebody or something, we are going to be motivated because of that love to do something positive, productive, encouraging, awesome to that person. Maybe we need to love more. The Bible says, love your neighbor as yourself. It says, love God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and then love your neighbor as yourself. And all the laws hang on those two things. If you fulfill those two things, you're fulfilling all the law. So maybe we need to have more love in our heart. Maybe if we love some local charities more, maybe if we love our local church more, maybe if we love people more, then we'll find more meaning and we'll find more purpose and we'll find more motivation to want to have a desire, a willpower to get up and to do things because of our love. Well, I'm trying to deal with the root cause, to pump you up and to give you an awesome speech that's going to motivate you is a temporary thing. It's going to dwindle away, and at some point it's not going to have any lasting effect on you, and you're going to be looking for the next motivational speech. But go to the root cause of it. Maybe there's not enough love in my life. Maybe I need to love more. Maybe I need to focus more on others and less on myself. Maybe I'm too selfish. Maybe I need to be more selfless. Maybe I need to focus more on loving my neighbor, and that will give me motivation. And then the second thing is look for what's really important in life. I think when we focus on trivial, worldly things all the time, in which there's really no lasting meaning. There's no real gravity there. It's just, it's fictional, it's meaningless. Then it's hard for us to really ever care about things. It's hard for us to really ever truly be motivated to do anything. If everything is just fictional, if everything is just temporary, if nothing really has any value, then what's the point? So we need to focus on those things in life that are truly important. So what's your purpose? Maybe you know someone that's in need, and it's real. This is real life. They're really in need. Or maybe there's a cause that you think is worth fighting for, and that cause means something to you to the point where it motivates you to want to get up, get out of the house, and get stuff done. So looking for bigger meaning in life, looking for bigger causes, and then looking to have more love for others. That's what I think is the answer that you'll find motivation for. Long-lasting motivation that comes deep from the root of your soul, not a temporary thing that you're going to just keep coming back to. I found motivation to go back to this series based on my desire to help others with situations that I'm going through. So, in fact, I finally had a minute to come back to this series of the battle between flesh and spirit. It's because of my love for you, the viewer, and my realizing how important it can be, since I'm struggling with it, I know others are too. And therefore, I become motivated to make a few notes, to do some reading, to do some studying, research, and to prepare, and then to give this little message, and then to do the editing and everything. I found motivation to get it done because I found value in it, in the content of it, and I found purpose, and because of my love for you. So finding that love and finding that purpose will help you to have the motivation that you need. That doesn't solve all the problems. That doesn't give you all the answers, but that's one little chink in the armor, I think, that'll help us to get that old self off of us and help us to focus more on God's Spirit that lives in us. So we're going to stop it here. Hopefully this has helped you. We're going to pick it up next time. Once again, the overall theme is this battle between flesh and spirit, but we're going to come at it from different angles. So until next time, take care.